everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Polyglot Perspective Podcast, hosted by me, Lily. And today, we have a very special guest, our own podcast host, Taylor Torres.
Hey everyone! So Lily and I just wanted to take a moment here to apologize for taking a short gap for the past few months for the podcast. We're really busy with school, but we really appreciate you guys taking the time to leave us messages and questions about future episodes. And so yeah, we're really excited to announce that we're coming back with the podcast and really hope that you look forward to our future episodes.
Yeah, and with that out of the way, we welcome you to season 3. In today's episode, we will be talking about how it's like growing up in the United States as a mixed person. Before we get started, we would really appreciate if you could take a few seconds to subscribe to the podcast and our YouTube channel, as well as leave us a great review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. This would help us a lot. Another reminder is that all of these podcast episodes will be available on our website, polyglotperspective.com. So feel free to check it out. Thanks so much. Without further ado, please welcome our guest for episode 1 of season 3 of the Polyglot Perspective Podcast, Taylor Torres. Taylor Torres is a high school student from California, currently learning Mandarin Chinese, Spanish, and dabbling in lots of different languages, such as Korean and Thai. She is the founder of Polyglot Perspective and hopes to inspire youth from around the world to learn languages to bridge the gap between different cultures. In her free time, she likes to go on walks with her family, read, and draw. Thanks so much for joining us, Taylor, on the other end. At the start of each episode, like you know already, we have the guests introduce themselves in the languages that they are currently learning. So please introduce yourself.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for that intro, Lily. So I'll start off with Spanish. Hola, soy Taylor y soy una estudiante de los Estados Unidos en Los Ángeles, California. Empecé a aprender español hace unos años en la escuela secundaria y sigo estudiando por mi propia cuenta. Mi papá es mexicano, así que a veces también practico hablar con él en español. So yeah, that was Spanish. And for Mandarin, 大家好，我叫陶乐怡，我是美国高中3年级学生。几年前我开始自学中文，但是好久没练习中文了。And for Korean, I don't know much Korean, but we'll just go. 안녕하세요. 저는 Taylor입니다. 만나서 반갑습니다. And for Thai, all I know pretty much is kapunka and things like that. So yeah.
That was really good, Taylor. And it was really interesting to hear you speaking Thai too, because last time we talked, I don't remember you studying Thai.
Yeah, so Thai, as with every language, it's kind of funny. Like, I feel like this is something that's super common in the polyglot community or
Mhm.
just anyone who wants to learn a language. Every single month, really, you'll just see me picking up a new language just based off of an experience that I had or a new show that I'm watching or things of that sort. Literally, every single experience in my life where I encounter a new language just prompts me to pick up a new language. So yeah, next month, I don't know. Next month there'll definitely probably be a new language as well.
It's just like you're the master dabbler, just a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
True.
But what pushed you really to start with Thai?
Thai for me, it's interesting because I feel like when you get into certain dramas, well, I feel like everybody is really familiar with the YouTube algorithm. So
Mhm.
I was really into K dramas. And so because of that, they would recommend me Chinese dramas. And then I watched Chinese dramas. And then they recommended me Filipino dramas. And then I watched that. And they recommended me Thai dramas. So I'm
Oh
just
my
like
gosh.
exploring all the dramas in Asia pretty much at this point. Yeah. And like at points, I have been interested in like learning Tagalog and other languages like that. So for Thai, it was just I was really interested in the dramas and I decided, why not? And I feel like same thing goes for Korean dramas as well. Once you're so exposed to a language in the form of entertainment, when you're listening to that content every single day, you tend to understand. So for me, I can't speak Korean very well at all, but I can understand a lot of what's going on, and I feel like that's true for Thai as well.
Yeah, even though we don't get it, maybe all the understanding, everything that's being said, it's just like really interesting to see another different point of view, different culture. And yeah, I really relate on the YouTube algorithm because it just gives you one thing and then it gives you
Yes,
everything. And it's like a little bit of each. And that's kind
true.
of like your cultural backgrounds. Can you explain to us your cultural background, where you're from, or what's your ethnicity, how you would consider it?
Yeah, definitely. So for me, I was born in the United States, as I mentioned earlier, but both my parents were born in different countries. So my mom was born in Vietnam and my dad in Mexico.
You also said that you were a bit of Chinese too?
Right. So my family's story is a little bit complex, but essentially, when you asked me when I was really young, what are you in terms of my cultural background, I would probably tell you I'm Chinese or I'm Asian or things of
Mhm.
that sort. And that was mostly because while my mom was born in Vietnam and my mom's mom was born in Vietnam, my mom's dad was born in China. And so we have like a lot of cultural mixing within my family, within my mom's side of the family and my dad's side of the family. So even though I'm ethnically Vietnamese, we celebrate a lot of Chinese culture as well. And my grandfather was from Chinese. I never got to meet him personally, but
Mhm.
yeah, we still celebrate a lot of Chinese cultures and Vietnamese traditions, with whether it be food, religion, just different traditions and things of that sort.
Yeah, your mom's like Vietnamese, speaks it fluently, but she still got a little bit of people in the family with Chinese, so you feel a part of that culture as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and by the way, how did your Mexican dad and Vietnamese mom meet? And can you tell us like a mini love story between them?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like it's always something that people are curious about because it's kind of an interesting mix that I don't think a lot of people usually see happen that much. And
Hmm.
so for me, or not for me, but for my parents, what they told me and my brother growing up was that my dad came to the States after graduating high school to come for like a job and for more opportunities and things of the sort. And he had a little job at a shop and he had to go to my mom's house to do some work there, and so he went to her house and they met and they kind of just hit it off. And I don't know, he sort of describes it as like love at first sight. I don't know. But yeah, he just said, she was really cute and they got each other's numbers, they started dating, and here I am. So something must have worked out.
Yeah, that's cool. It surprises me kind of because, like the internet's more like right now and stuff. So people just adding the phone numbers and stuff wait, did they have cell phones in their time?
Um, I think like very, very new cell phones, like very old cell phones at that time.
So how did they add numbers or something like add home numbers or whatever?
Honestly, I don't know. You'd have to ask them. I don't really know. But yeah, I just know that they like kept in contact with each other like however they could. So maybe that was like through different platforms. I'm not sure.
Oh, that's cool and stuff. And also, like, just your dad being Mexican and your mom being Vietnamese, has there ever been like any cultural misunderstandings between the two sides? And how was your life growing up in a multicultural, multilingual household?
Yeah, so in terms of the cultural misunderstandings, I don't think there were many opportunities for there to be a lot of cultural misunderstandings because I feel like my parents,
Hmm.
both came to the United States when they were pretty young. I mean, my dad came after high school, which is that young, but he still was able to learn English here and adapt sort of to the American culture and able to meet a lot of people with diverse backgrounds in the United States. And I feel like that definitely opened up both of their minds to different cultures, and I feel like, yeah, generally they were both really understanding of each other's cultures and each other's different religions and backgrounds and things of that sort. And I think they also bonded over just like speaking English as their
Hmm.
second languages as well. So I don't think there was much room for cultural misunderstandings, but I do think sometimes there are definitely conflicts with each other's families growing up because both my parents came from very traditional families. My dad came from a family that was very Catholic, and then my mom came from one that was very Buddhist. And so they definitely had like religious differences at that point, but I think they both definitely came to different understandings of the sort. And yeah, in terms of culture and food and things of that sort, my dad definitely is a big fan of like Vietnamese food and pho, and he's always definitely the biggest advocate when going to Vietnamese restaurants and things of that sort. And same goes with my mom. So yeah, I think in terms of misunderstandings, there weren't many. And growing up in a multicultural household, I feel like I'm not sure if it's a unique experience on my part, but a lot of the friends that I have currently whose parents were not born in the United States or born in different countries usually have the experience of teaching their kids their
Hmm.
native language. So a lot of my Chinese friends can speak Chinese fluently because that was what they were grown speaking in their household, or Korean friends speak Korean and Spanish friends and etc. But in terms of my personal experiences, my parents didn't teach me their native languages growing up, so that was always, I feel like, a part of myself that I felt a little disconnected from
Mhm.
growing up until quite recently when I started to see the importance of learning different languages and I began learning my family's native languages growing up.
Yeah, that's a lot of the cases when people migrate to America. They really want to assimilate, and a lot of times they just like mislook the mother languages to make sure their kid does okay in America. And well, I can't relate exactly to this, but I guess because I'm adopted and my mom, she's Irish descent. It's like, I guess it's a little bit hard with identity wise because the world expects you to speak a certain language based off how you look, but then you don't meet those expectations. A lot of people, after they're born in America or they just migrate here and they just were in America their whole life. So it's really hard to keep their language sometimes.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, and I like how you phrased it, like, the world expects you to be a certain way. I feel
Hmm.
like that definitely is how it feels sometimes, growing up, with, like, multicultural background. I feel like a lot of people, like you mentioned, they look at you a certain way, they take a good look at you, and they're like, okay, they have their own preconceived notions about you as a person and your ethnicity and your background and things like that, and at first glance, I definitely look a little more Asian than I do Hispanic, and so that was something that I was always grappling with growing up. Am I Hispanic enough? Do I like deserve to call myself Mexican when I don't really look Mexican? And I feel like that was always something that I was dealing with growing up. But and I feel like that's definitely something that all multicultural kids, biracial, whatever you want to call it, kids definitely grow up with. And it's really hard to really choose or really identify yourself as something when society, has preconceived notions about who you are. But I think just by, speaking with your parents and getting to know the different aspects of yourself, it really helps you embrace all the parts of, who you are as a person.
Yeah, definitely. Because, like, a lot of the times people just really feel more comfortable, I guess, with boxing people into certain categories. Like, oh, you're Asian, you're Hispanic, you're Middle Eastern, you're this. But a lot of people, well, there's a lot of intermixing with different cultures. So, a lot of people, especially mixed people, I can't speak for them myself, but I can only guess that it's really hard for them to actually say who they are. If I were to ask you, where are you from? Is it like kind of a conflict in identifying yourself?
Yeah, I feel like that's like a notorious question. I feel like a lot of biracial, multiracial people are asked. Because like you said earlier, yeah, it's definitely a thing that society likes to do is like box people in and stick these labels on people, because that makes them more comfortable with identifying who people are. And so for me, identifying myself, like I said earlier, when you would like talk to me, if you would ask me when I was younger, like, "What are you?" I would have probably
Hmm.
told you I was Asian because that's what people expected me to say, but growing up and getting to know my family's culture better, learning Spanish, learning Chinese, learning some Vietnamese as well, it allowed me to embrace all aspects of myself and be proud of calling myself not only Asian American, not only Hispanic American, but, Vietnamese,
Hmm.
Chinese, Mexican American.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And you've have this very cultural background with different things, and that pushed you to learning Chinese, Spanish, and even a little Vietnamese. You also even dabble in other languages. How do you even juggle learning all of these languages?
Yeah, so, in short, I don't because I think it's definitely very hard, to, juggle school and life and everything and language learning and stuff like that. So I feel like it would be a false narrative saying, every single day I do school, I do
Hmm.
Polyglot Perspective, I do sports, and then I learn Chinese, Spanish, Korean, all these languages every single day. Because that's not true. And I feel like that's definitely an idealized version of this. But in terms of how I juggle everything, I would say definitely it's just keeping your priorities straight and learning how to prioritize certain things, and as well as knowing the differences in practices and methods of learning each language.
Hmm.
So for me in Spanish, I know that I study Spanish in school every single day. So for me, that's sort of a routine thing, not something that I need to spend much time outside of school doing.
Hmm.
Unless I have more extra free time and I want to talk to my dad in Spanish and utilize that time, then I will do that. But I know that I'll have every single day of immersive Spanish practice in school. But as for Chinese, that's different because I don't have Chinese class every day. So I need to self-study that. And so for Chinese, Korean, all these other languages that I'm self-studying, that's more of whenever I have time for it and whether or not I feel like studying, because I feel like motivation is definitely super important, but also motivation can only take you so far. I feel like it's also, you want to be disciplined, but you also want to have fun. I think having a, balance in terms of, you know, setting goals for yourself, but also making sure you have fun with languages because I think going on Instagram, going on YouTube, seeing all these like challenges, okay, learn this language in this amount of time,
Mhm.
6 weeks, you want to learn it in the fastest time possible. I think it's just really important to have fun with the process. And I think that is probably my biggest tip in terms of juggling language learning is just finding your why, finding your reason why, and then, just like watching shows in your target language or journaling in your target language, just finding ways to make it fun on a
Mhm.
daily basis, I think really helps.
Yeah, because a lot of people, well, you brought up a really good point because a lot of people want to learn languages in the shortest amount of time possible. But the truth is, in that, you can't really learn a language in a short time. It requires a lot of dedication. So you brought up another good point about actually enjoying it, having fun. And that really helps because if you're not having fun, then you don't really learn that much of things.
I agree. If not having fun, then don't do it.
Exactly.
That's sort of my whole thing. Like, unless it's like a course that you have to take in school and you're assigned a certain language. Even then though, I would say just try to make it fun.
Mhm.
Like just try your very best, find, certain things that you like. So if you're really into music, maybe find some music in your target language or things like that. Because I think definitely if you don't like what you're learning, then you're not going to learn it.
Exactly, exactly. It's like any of those subjects in school or you have a task at work that you don't like, you kind of psych yourself out from actually doing it, saying, I
Hmm.
hate this. I'm so bad at this. That's kind of me with math before and stuff. I hate this. This is so bad.
Yes,
I am literally so stressed out for this. But if you really change your mindset about it and change the methods of how you're doing, you can like come to love anything because when I was younger, I didn't like Spanish. I was pretty bad. When we were doing a Spanish project, I got picked last and we were all of the reject
I
groups and
know.
stuff and I didn't like it and look at me now.
Look
I
at you
can
now.
speak
Yes.
now. So it just really depends about the way you choose to learn.
I 100% agree with that. Yes, changing your mindset about anything you do in life definitely will get you to where you want to be.
Yeah, and just you can even use your passion to start different things. For example, if you're already in the language community, there's a lot of things that you can do just to share your passion, just like Taylor did. And she created this Polyglot Perspective organization with youth around the world. And maybe some of you might ask, and this is the next question for Taylor, but how did you think of this idea to create a Polyglot youth organization?
Yeah, definitely. This is a question I get asked quite often. But yeah, I think it's kind of an unconventional answer, but in the beginning, I definitely did not, have this sort of like massive goal, massive
Hmm.
ambitious goal of like creating a youth organization from around the world. That was not my intention in the beginning, surprisingly. In the beginning, it was quarantine. It was like June 2020, so quarantine and like COVID just hit the whole world. We were all staying at home, and I just didn't really have much to do. And I just was really interested in learning languages, and I wanted to share my passion. And I've always been a writer, and I've always liked writing and sort of expressing
Hmm.
myself. And I just wanted to hear about other people's experiences with language learning because going to school, I think this is a pretty, common thing around the world as well, not only in America. But, they teach you languages in school, but I feel like a lot of students never truly fall in love with
Hmm.
languages or don't see the reason behind why we should learn any languages. And I think that's especially true in the United States, where you have this massive population of US citizens who are, monolingual and don't see the importance of learning another language. And for me, I just thought, I was able to learn so much about my family's culture through learning their native languages. And I sort of wanted to give back and sort of highlight the different experiences of youth around the world who are doing similar things to me and, who are polyglots and who are multilingual. And so I created the blog and podcast, initially just by myself. And then I met people like you
Mhm.
and other youth around the world who were super, interested in the project. and things of that sort. And I was like, you know what? Why not open this project up to more youth around the world and expand it on new projects? And so now we are working on like language courses, YouTube videos, more podcast episodes, our blog, and things of that sort. And yeah, I just really wanted to give youth a voice because I feel like a lot of the content you see online is more geared towards adult polyglots. And I feel like there's not as much youth representation. So I just wanted to give that.
Yeah, exactly. Because, like, even in the StudyGram community, Instagram, you would see a lot of them. They're maybe in their upper 20s or YouTubers. They're already adults, they have their jobs. But then there is a group of youth polyglots, but it's not really vocal or really concentrated with people around the world. So I really love your project, how you're doing this. And do you have any main goals for the long run of Polyglot Perspective Podcast, even just the whole organization itself, where you'd like to be in the future or 5 to 10 years from now?
Yeah, so in terms of the podcast, I think that's definitely up to you and me,
Hmm.
whatever we decide for the future. But I really liked talking to people, and I think the podcast is wonderful. But like you said, in 10 years, that's kind of a long
Yeah.
time, so we might not be youth at that point in the future.
Well, we still can help.
Yeah, definitely. I would still love to continue with the podcast episodes, maybe bring more youth, maybe expanding it into different languages where we do multilingual podcast episodes. I think that would be really, really interesting. And yeah, I think there's always room for us to grow in that manner. And in terms of Polyglot Perspective as a whole organization, every single year we've been building on our projects and adding more new ideas and things of that sort. And we have a lot of new projects in store. Please look forward to them. I think by the time this podcast episode will be released, we'll announce our new project that we're currently working on, which is a sort of like multilingual magazine or zine. So I hope you guys look forward to that. But yeah, in the next 5 to 10 years, I would love to continue with this and add more new perspectives, possibly highlight languages that aren't commonly talked about or spoken, and things of that sort.
Yeah, that's so amazing. Just giving light to all languages, not even just the mainstream ones, just the ones that maybe are underrepresented. And it was really a pleasure. Usually, you are the one interviewing people, and I remember the first time we was on the podcast, I was also interviewed by you, and I just really liked the idea of you sharing your story because you are the face of the Polyglot Perspective organization, and it's really nice to get to know you more, and so the audience can get to know your background as well.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to interview me. I know you did a lot of the talking this time and with all the introduction and stuff. And it was definitely interesting to be on the interviewee side of the podcast episode this time around. And I definitely know how it feels now. But yeah, I had a really nice time talking to you.
Yeah, it was great. And can you teach us your favorite word or phrase in any of the languages that you're learning?
Yeah, so my favorite phrase, I don't know if it's my favorite phrase, but just a phrase or just a word that I think is really cool in the Spanish language would be soledad. And that is sort of word that I came across. I guess one of the first words that I came across my Spanish teacher in middle school, I believe. Her name was Soledad, and I was just like, "That's a really beautiful name," and I didn't know what it meant. And then I looked it up on Google, and it means solitude and like loneliness, and that's kind of depressing a little bit. But I just think it's kind of profound, and it's a really beautiful name, and so that's always been something that's well, that about wraps it up for today's podcast episode. Thank you guys so much for listening, and thank you so much, Lily, for chatting with me. We had a wonderful time, and I had a wonderful time talking about my personal experiences with language learning, polyglot perspective, my multicultural background, all that stuff like that. And yeah, I just hope you guys all enjoyed, and we look forward to coming back with future episodes with you guys. Thanks so much.